At least he's the one who answers the question.
Hey there, everybody. So I'm CCB Dolan, and welcome to the CSM panel for the Council of Stellar Management. So I assume everyone here sort of knows what the Council of Stellar Management is, right? I assume if you're at this panel, you have a rough idea of what it is. For those of you who don't know, I'm the CSM coordinator. With me, I have CCB Lilu, who is our most recent who is our most recent CSM coordinator, is coming on to help me on with CSM 9. And then we can go through and have all of our wonderful CSMs introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Chitsa Jason. Damn, that's allowed. I'm Wormhole CSM, basically, so.
Ripper Tag, I write a blog.
I'm Minna.
The Goon.
The Goon.
Yeah, I'm Ali Aris. I'm new player, CSM, NOR member, used to be in Providence.
Kesper North, I'll be CEO of Gents for a few more weeks.
I'm Sala from Pandemic Legion.
I'm Malkanis, the CSM asshole.
I'm Tripper, the old guy.
I'm Mike Azariah. I'm the Care Bear.
Okay. So for all those of you who might be interested, we also have the CSM Roundtable on Saturday. We're going to have a question and answer period of this panel, but I'd appreciate it be based on questions about the CSM as an institution. More personal questions or suggestions should probably save for the roundtable. So to start off, CSM 8, just a quick review of this year, some of the things we've changed, some of the things we've updated. So this year, for instance, was the first year we actually had a CSM elected using our new election system. With the CSM 8 elections, we completely overhauled the election system, and we actually used it again most recently in the CSM 9 elections, which I hope you all voted in, and if you didn't vote in it, you can never say anything bad about EVE Online. That's how it works. And also, let CCB Fozzie know you didn't vote, and he'll nerf your favorite ship. So we completely overhauled the voting system to single transferable vote instead of first past the post. You got to see all the wonders of that in the UI in the CSM 8 and 9 elections, and we found that to be incredibly successful. We had upwards of 90% voter enfranchisement, which means not more than 90% of votes actually counted, whereas in the previous first past the post elections, even though there had been more votes, the vast majority of those votes did not count. Only the votes that were just barely enough to get someone onto the top 14 counted. For instance, additionally, in this year, we changed the way CSMs attend summits, right? So every year before CSM 8, the top 7 would always attend the summits, and then the bottom 7 would attend digitally, or if when the top 7 couldn't come, then we'd move someone up. This year, we used the new 2+5 system, where when we run the election, because of the way STV works, all top 14 all have the same number of votes. But then we run the election again, this time only selecting for a council of 2 people, and those 2 people attend every summit. And this year it was Ripper Tag and Minna. And then CCP selects the other 5 based on votes from the CSM, how much work a CSM is doing, votes from developers, what the topics in the next expansion are, so that we make sure we have relevant CSMs. And more importantly, we make sure that every CSM who is doing good work gets at least one chance to come to Iceland, right? So this year that worked incredibly well. In previous CSMs, we have 2-step here from CSM 7. How many people would you say were active full-time CSMs? 5? So this year I would feel fairly confident saying around 13 were full-time, hardworking, attending all the meetings CSMs, right? To the level of those previous 5 from CSM 7. So that was tremendously successful, and we can't really pinpoint what has caused that success, whether that's the new voting system, creating a more equitable council, a more even council, or the 2+5 system, or me coming on as coordinator. Toot my own horn, pat myself on the back.
Probably in spite of that.
Probably not that one, probably not that one. But I think we've been tremendously successful with CSM 8. CSM 8 has gone from, with CSM 7, They attempted to be a stakeholder on Team Super Friends. Didn't really work out. The program didn't really work effectively. But we learned a lot of lessons. With CSM 8, they're a full-time stakeholder in Team 5.0. They attend bi-weekly, or every other week, they attend a stakeholder meeting, same as every other CCP stakeholder. And they also have chat channels with all of the development teams, kept up to date with all of the projects that are coming along, all the features as they develop. They frequently see dev blogs before they're released. They see early iterations of features to give feedback on our internal forums. So they're a tremendously useful asset for our development. They're also tremendously useful for just sort of understanding like player sentiment. Like frequently when CCP is a little bit confused, doesn't really know what move we should make or what players are feeling at the time, we'll pull the CSM into a meeting, talk to them about it, say, hey, what are some things you would think would expect from us doing this? What should we do differently? Blah, 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 all this sort of things. So I really can't extol the virtues of the CSM enough. I hope you all voted in CSM 9. I and CCP Lulu both know the results for CSM 9, which
But
will
we
be,
won't tell them to you.
we won't tell them to you unless you buy us a lot of drinks.
No, not even then.
Okay.
I'm immune.
Oh, okay. Are you immune to alcohol?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Get her really drunk.
Challenge accepted.
And those will be announced Saturday at the keynote. But I hope CSM 9 will be just as great a crew. And from who I know is on it, I think they will be. So I want to open the floor for questions. Anybody has questions or things that they want to know about, some insider stuff that I might be willing to leak now that I wasn't willing to leak before. If you guys could line up to the microphones on either side if you have any questions, that would be great. So brave.
Good afternoon. Wow, what a voice.
It's pretty
First of
sexy,
all,
gotta
I
tell you.
would like to congratulate all the members here of the CSM. So congratulations for being there. I think it was not be easy for each and every one of them, so congratulations. Now the serious question. I'm not the only one to believe this, but I think that we have a problem with EVE Online. And this problem is that I have the feeling that the member base and the active number of players and the activity is going down. And I think that is something which is very serious, and EVE exists now more than 10 years. It's amazing that it exists 10 years. And we have to continue with this game that has inspired so many of us. And so I would like to know if the CSM is aware of this and what we can do about that. And
So
this is a whole other discussion than balancing ships and putting in new POS structures or new alliances or whatever. I think it's a fundamental question, and I think the answer should come from within the community. So what can we do about that?
Well, I mean, to some degree here, Mike Azariah had tinfoil hats for us to all put on, but we seem to have forgotten them. Oh, we just blew the surprise. So
Yeah.
much for that.
So I'd come back and say you've got a feeling. What data have you got? Have you been tracking the numbers in the new player corps, or looking in the new player systems? Have you got more than a feeling? Because the sub numbers look fine.
Which has some relationship to subscriptions, but not. It's my understanding that it's not a complete one-to-one PCU count correlates with subscribers. I think I remember seeing blog posts about this.
We'll put it this way: how many people only ever log in these days for a fleet fight?
Oh,
That's PL there. Yeah, I can see the PL group up there. So I mean, if you've got less and less reason to log in and do other things because someone else pays for your ships, or you flex all your money or what have you, you're going to have less reason to log in. On average, there's going to be less reason to log in, and on average, the concurrent user count's going to be down. Doesn't mean that subs are necessarily down, though.
It is. I mean, that is a thing where there are opportunities for more engagement, more things that provide engagement in between fleet fights, because right now your options are basically sit around spinning your ship in a station, do some PvE. I hear the PvE in this game is great.
I'm the only one who tells you that.
But speaking at least for me, I've been very interested in particularly the things that get new players into the game and get them sticking in the game. And so approaching it from that angle is also something that CSM has talked about. But going back to Melcanis' thing about activity decreasing, Eve dying, et cetera, the CSM does talk to CCP about how the game is doing. And the CSM is concerned that the game continued to do well, but I can't really comment on whether Eve is dying or not. You would have to ask that gentleman right there.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Have it. The way I see if Eve is dying, then like how people are saying PC gaming is dying. That's have been going on like for 15 years now. So I think that's the same with Eve. People are shouting that Eve is dying, and I don't think so.
I was about to say,
exactly.
Die before
I think that what you're perceiving is not so much evidence of Eve dying. I'm sorry, as it is evidence that CCP is making a very considered decision about what they need to do to prevent it from dying. I've watched how their development priorities and methods have changed over the 4 years I've been on CSM. And in my opinion, it's changed in an entirely positive direction. 4 years ago, there was this heavy focus on doing big expansions with big headline features in order to pump up the subscriber count. But they realized that this wasn't working. Whereas it would have a short-term effect, it wasn't helping in terms of the long-term health of the game. And they've made a very smart decision to address some of the sort of festering sores that have been left over from the early days of the game. As they've had to go back and revisit the foundations of the game in order to have something more solid in which to build the game for the next 10 years. That's why you're seeing things like the industry revamp we're getting in this current expansion. That's where they've taken this idea of rebuilding the foundations and really kicked it up a notch. And I think you're going to see that happening to an even greater degree over the next few expansions, and then culminating in something really major, which is CCP Siegel's long-term vision. So the bottom line is, I wouldn't worry too much about, Eve curling up and dying. I would look upon it as a necessary, not so much change in direction as a little bit of a detour in order to make sure that the path ahead is more clear.
So TLDR, it's a concern, but I don't think anyone's worried.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Yeah. Next question.
All right. You mentioned that, you mentioned the improvements from CSM 7 going into CSM 8. So both for the CSM members and for you guys as CSM coordinators, what would you say are the big things that will need or should be improved or could be improved going into CSM 9 from CSM 8?
One of the biggest things, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump on this, but one of the biggest things that I think could be improved going into CSM 9 would be improving the engagement between CSM and sort of the everyday average EVE player. All of you guys who are in this auditorium are some of the most highly engaged, highly motivated participants in the CSM process, all very engaged in the game, all that. There's a bunch of other people flying out in space who may not have heard of us, who may not really understand what the CSM does, who may have misconceptions leading them to think that the CSM doesn't matter or whatever. I think CSM 8 did a really good job of improving a lot of the communication in this really engaged kind of bubble. I would like to see CSM 9 take it out of that and get more community involvement. And about Dolan.
This was an argument I was having on the forums a little while ago about whether the problem is apathy or education. And I think a lot of the player base is apathetic because they haven't been educated. So the root is being able to tell them that there is a part of the game that they might not know, that isn't a button that you can push on the screen. The metagame is here, whether you want to play it or not. We are part of the process. And so educating more people, the number of times I've campaigned and people said, what the hell's the CSM? Or what do you mean, what election? During the election season. And I'm getting votes from total strangers because they go, oh yeah, I guess I can vote. And they didn't know that it existed. And you've probably met people in your own corp. Like Ellen said, you guys are the engaged ones. We're preaching to the choir here. It's all the rest of them that we have to get engaged, the communication to the general populace. But if you've got a suggestion how we can talk to the people who don't want to listen, I would love to hear it. Send us messages. When we did the email blast last year at the beginning of the CSM 8 campaign, it didn't get the results we wanted. We got a lot of complaints. Trevor did a slightly more focused campaign. I was talking to him about that earlier today and how he chose who he sent the emails to. It had a better response, but we have to find a way to talk to the people in a way that doesn't piss them off. So if you just suddenly have, you may not know this, but Eve has sound. And if suddenly right in the middle of a fleet battle it said, vote for the election or else, it would be great, but people would complain.
I'm not sure that would be great.
Awesome.
My suggestion, and Trevor challenged me to put it up when the election was still running, but I didn't want you to absolutely avoid voting, was that we penalize all players 0.0001% of their skill training time unless they vote. By the way, if you do the math, that's 1 minute over the entire year.
What was the question again? Because I don't remember it anymore.
You give me a minute, I'll give you back yours.
Improve.
The improvements we could make.
Well, basically, I think what can improve is, so players actually know what CSM is, as mentioned by Evers. Right now, the average player doesn't really know what the fuck we do, and they just don't care. So what can improve is, if CCP does more, publicity stunts about CSM, that would be great.
What if I just...
I'm going back to Dolan.
I kill a member of the CSM? No. I think one of those things is like, as a member of the community team as well on CCP, I get to see what percentage of the community actually reads dev blogs, participates in the forums and all those sorts of things. And like, this is a larger problem than just the CSM in that engaging the community in a conversation, even with just CCP, tends to be quite difficult. The majority of people never read the forums, never read dev blogs. The game just sort of changes and they go, oh, cool. Like they watch a trailer or something. But I think that the CSM is one of those particular areas where, especially around election season, so we constantly get the talk of, oh, you need to do more promotion for the election season, all these sorts of things. And every year we do new things for the election seasons, we do new promotions. This year we did a video for the first time. That was a fairly extensive interview video with many members of CSM 8. But I think one of the things that has trended down, and one of the things I'd like to change, it's a little late to do it with CSM 9, but it'd be great to do with CSM 10, is sort of encourage people to campaign more, because campaigning has slowly been decreasing over the years. There's less and less big names to sort of carry the election. I think we all sort of can see that. There's nobody who really sticks out as like, give me 10,000 votes or whatever. Just an example there, a theoretical example. There's less and less people who are sort of driving player attention. And sort of just like in the election for the US president, I as an American understand that the US president is important. I as an EVE player understand that CSM is important. But if there's nobody there who I really like, I'm not going to vote. And one of those things is like people need to be increasingly getting out there and saying, hey, I have these qualities, you should vote for me for this reason, or I represent you in this way, or you should be engaged for these reasons. And it's really that sort of personal contact between players and another player that really are going to make people really want to vote for someone, really want to be involved, really follow the election. It's not just me sending out a mail saying, hey, it's election time again, go vote. It's someone coming and knocking on your door and saying, like, hey, let me talk to you about this candidate. And that's one of the things I'd like to prep CSM 10 for. Maybe perhaps create like a primer document, send it out to all the people who apply to be a CSM 10 candidate, and saying, here's great ways to campaign, here's some things that you can do that really have great responses, and really make sure that people are getting out there and talking to people. Because I can talk at people, but I can't really have a conversation with people. It's very difficult to do as a developer, because I'm restricted in how many people I can talk to. I don't have the sort of manpower that large groups who might be trying to push a candidate might have. And all these sorts of things would be really great to do in CSM 10, particularly in my retrospective for the elections for CSM 9.
In that light, though, do you not think that the SDV might be working against you? Because instead of convincing people that I should be their top pick, all I have to do is convince them that I should be one of the 14, which is way easier. And I need way fewer votes in total to make it.
One of the things you have to do to survive into the later rounds of SDV, though, is you do have to have a critical mass of number 1 votes.
Oh,
closer.
Yeah, the mic, those mics are a little finicky. There we go.
You do need a certain threshold.
Yeah, you need a
since, votes
critical
get
mass of
distributed,
number 1
you
vote.
need to be only one of the 14. It's much easier to get elected than it was in the first past the post system.
You're right in a way, but I mean, if you're the 14th spot on literally every single ballot cast, you're not getting in.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right.
Or even if you're number 3 on 10,000 ballots, you're not going to get elected. We saw that happen last year. The number 3 CFC candidate, who you would expect to be a shoe-in, got eliminated like 2nd or 3rd because he didn't have enough number 1 votes to even get into that second stage of the election.
Yeah, I mean,
you raise a great question, and Mike and Ali really nailed the answer. To their answer, I would add, both within the player base and within the CCP population, we see a kind of clustering of when players and CCP devs are interested in the CSM. And for players, it's around election time, and for devs, it's around the summits. I'd love to see both an expansion of player interest in the CSM outside of the election. That's why I tried to drive a lot of town halls this year. And on the CCP side, I'd love to see more devs involved in the CSM process outside of the summit. We had a number of devs that were really involved in the process through Skype and through the forums, and I think that was great. And it's been getting better and better each CSM, and I think CSM 8 cut a lot of interesting new trails. But for CSM 9, this is going to be one of their challenges, is to keep pulling more CCP devs into the process more often, as well as pull players in more often. It's a great question.
Not directly related to the improvement of the CSM, but I felt like we were missing a low-sec voice in CSM 8, like in a lot of occasions, and I really hope for the next CSM, for CSM 9, there will be a proper low-sec representative.
Okay, let's go over to the left here.
I wanted to say that I've been asking people at Fanfest for the past 3 years if they voted, and Ali said that most people have voted, and that's barely true at Fanfest. It's like 60%. So I wouldn't say that you have everyone in this room locked up. I bet if you actually had people raise hands who didn't vote, there'd still be a lot of people in here.
So yeah, who
voted?
Who
voted?
Who did not vote?
Get out.
What are you doing in this
Why
room?
Why did you not vote?
I'm going to derail this. I'm going to derail this for just a second. Do any brave souls want to come up and say why they did not vote?
Wait,
Didn't know what was going
there's
on.
a set of reasons that people generally give. There's a set of people who don't feel like anyone represented them.
Okay, didn't see it. Are these people walking down with reasons? They're NPL, so they should know.
It's because he has hypothermia from the shorts.
So I don't actually log in, and Bolton didn't send...
A typical PL answer.
The PL answer is, thank you, Pandemic Legion.
So Bolton didn't send a mail this year, and I sort of, I found out today that the voting was over.
Oh, okay. Next.
I didn't vote because Elise Randolph is not running for CSM.
We've collected both PL answers to this question.
And because you guys seem too focused on wanting to talk to the people who don't care, you should focus on the people who sent you. Like, I didn't vote, so.
So
I
don't
didn't get
care
on
about you, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Basically, you should focus on the people who send you to Iceland, which
So you're saying we shouldn't talk to you because you didn't vote?
Yeah.
So why?
So-
Not reasonable.
To your
Next question.
Can we have this
Well-
man escorted from the microphone, please?
Anyway,
All right.
So
The
I'm
detours-
going to give you the reason. I voted, but my best friend didn't. And the reason he didn't is because 14 choices with not very consolidated information, making an intelligent vote was too much research for him. And he'd rather play the game.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be, like, label people as low sec or high sec. Make it
No.
Make it
no,
easy.
no, no.
Make the
Or let people
information
tag
more
themselves.
concise.
Was he aware of the CSM vote match where he could have answered questions and we were all labeled? You could pick and say, I'm a high-sec player, and they would have given one name. You say you're a null-sec
Maybe
small
That
gang
was
and
like
get another.
I don't know if you've gone through that. That was a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Who was interested in voting and did vote, didn't make it through the vote sec, the match. It's not, yes, some of us were very, very, very invested, but not everyone who plays EVE wants to put that much effort into the CSM.
Yeah. All right. We'll end that detour. Thank you. That's actually always super good constructive information. Let's go over here.
I was going to say, to sort of follow up on that, because I think it's a general problem for the CSM is that it sort of sometimes overcomplicates things. A prime example is the minutes. For anyone that has actually read it and spent the hours, let alone days, reading it, that doesn't translate very well into voters. These get these huge block of papers and go like, I can't be arsed. You get, I have to pick 14 people.
No, I'm really sorry. We did a lot of work.
Yes, but see, that's the problem. You have to consider who you are addressing. And people generally get overstimulated, over-informed, and drown in it. I think picking 14 people is a lot.
So both you and the previous question person is asking for TLDRs.
Yeah, actually, it's dumbing down the feedback that we get to a degree.
That's not a normal request.
Well, actually, I don't think that it should be dumbed down as much. It should be a little bit more like, why isn't there a version of the minutes which is maybe 2 pages long?
Well, that's the thing, though. There is.
Yeah.
I spend a ton of time before my CSM8 run
Yeah, but
reading. Well, hold on. Let me finish. I spend a ton of time reading every line, every word of the minute, and then I summarized it down into like 5 or 6 blog posts for people who read my blog, and I quite frankly think I got a couple of thousand votes out of doing just that.
Yeah, and I think that is a very good thing. But why isn't that the thing that got sent out, and the huge pile of paper not the thing that got linked to?
No, I mean, there are players who find a lot of value in that very expansive document and will compress it down for other players.
But what I mean is, when you present the huge pile of paper first and then tell you, oh, if you go through this process, you can find over there the small version. Instead of giving the short version, saying, if you find this intriguing, click here for more information.
In academic terms, that's also called an abstract.
Yeah, but what are you? The thing I'm more suggesting is presenting the abstract first, and then the paper, not guessing that people would read the paper and then look for the abstract.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Cool. All right, we'll go right and then left because there was a weird right mix up here.
Thank you. My name is Bobman. I'm the chief editor of EVE News 24, and I wanted to thank Rupert for his work that he did, and all the other 13 CSM candidates. And I was wondering...
Rupert and the other 13 people.
See what I did?
we are now a rock band.
And I was wondering what you think is the best thing the CSM has done this year, as in actual changes maybe, or actual work that CCP was like, hey, we didn't know that.
Should I leak something right now?
No, the best thing the CSM did this year are things that you will never hear about.
Oh, actually, I was just going to leak something right now.
Okay, just go ahead.
So the big one that stands out, start with an E, everybody. Does everyone sort of agree on that one?
Yeah, pretty
I thought
much.
didn't you say this in Declarations of War?
I think I may have leaked it there, but I was also really tired when I did it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so the sort of textbook feature example of how the CSM is really, really great is how many people know the ESS? The ESS is sort of like for nullsec people only, but like you can sort of, you may have heard about it. It's essentially like a risk-reward modifier that like makes it riskier to rat where you're ratting, but you get more reward over time. The initial ESS design was in real early stages, probably like mid-design stages during the first CSM 8 summit. And when the team brought the ESS in and showed it to the CSM, I realized that CSM 8 was probably one of the more mature CSMs because I could read what they were typing in Skype, but they were being very polite in the actual room. It basically was a situation where we were going into the expansion, and the team had a lot of projects on its plate, right? And they were working through all these different projects as when they were doing the deployables, something we hadn't really done before, and teams have an expectation to deliver all of these things. So every team, when they work on a project, really wants to get their project delivered in the next expansion. You don't want to have to wait and delay your project. You really want to get it done and out to the players so you can iterate on it and all these sorts of things. So frequently, it can be a fast development cycle. We only have 6 or 7 sprints, 2-week sprints, but for an expansion, right? So the ESS came in and was, to the designers at the time, seemed pretty decent, needed a little bit of work. But because of the CSM's expertise in the particular areas that the ESS was going to affect, for instance, intercorp relationships,
Intra-corp
routing
relationships.
tactics.
Intracorp, yeah.
Yeah, intracorp. And they really were like, whoa, wait a second. Don't. There was a really strong sentiment that this is not a good idea. And they discussed some of the ways it could be fixed in the summit, and then it went to a thread. And it came to the point where it was unclear of whether this was going to be in a state to ship. And the CSM wrote a very well-worded, extensive letter and sent it directly to CCP Siegel and the game designers at CCP and said, this should not ship in this expansion. It was a design feature that was set to ship, set to be produced. It was actually going into production, I think 2 or 3 days after the letter was sent. It was planned to go into production. Letter came in, got passed all around the office, and everyone was like, we really haven't been thinking about it from this perspective. All these guys are right, guys and girl, are right. We really need to hold this back. So it ended up delaying the feature for 2 or 3 months, I think.
Until 1.1.
It was delayed until 1.1, and during the entire redesign phase of the ESS, the CSM was literally there, I think, in every step. There was a gigantic thread that we had on the internal forums where it was like, how about this mechanic? Here's all the problems with that. All right, how about this mechanic? Here's the problems with that, but this is better than this. How about this? This is better than this. To the point where it actually got to the ESS now, where I don't think anyone finds it completely intolerable mechanic. Actually, a lot of people use it, particularly I think one of our CSM's alliances uses it most extensively. Don't look around there.
Yeah, probably.
But it's in a state now where it's actually a good feature and provides interesting content to people, whereas before it was going to be sort of a pain feature. And I don't think if the CSM had been there, I don't think we would have caught it in a point where we either would have had to have delayed it much later in the production cycle, where we would have wasted a lot of production time working on it before the design was in a place where we wanted it, or it would have shipped in a situation where it would not have been very good. And I think that's probably just like a really textbook, really solid example of the CSM, like the lack of CSM involvement would have been a really, really sour note in something that would have been released in the game or would have delayed production of other features.
Just to answer that question more broadly, I think if CSM 8 was stakeholder version 2, I think we were also partnership version 1. There were a lot of examples where CSM members were asked to jump into features while they were in the design phase, while they were in the implementation phase, just as if we were members of the team with a lot of back and forth conversation. I mean, I could name a lot of features where that happened this year, and I think future CSMs can really build on that groundwork we've laid.
We're like vitamins. You take them, you don't see an effect. If you stop taking them, like if you don't get your vitamin C, scurvy sets in. So you don't see the effect that we have, but things will go bad if we're not there.
Well,
I'll get scurvy.
There are also quite a few features which would not have been in Eve if not CSM.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if we take SMA drops or
You'd think he's
let's
running
say
for re-election or
D-scan
something.
changes, you get a new D-scan, it was basically CSM, suggesting that, and, CCP actually, delivering.
Suggesting that over and over.
Over and over and over again.
Another way to
get
I'll
annoying.
make 3 graphics of that.
So
another way to play off of what Dolan said is, between the ESS coming out to the public and the actual release, there was another small iteration on it that was the result of your feedback, just in case you think CCP doesn't listen to you on the forums or something. So, I mean, go get involved in the feature and idea threads and give your constructive feedback, and it may just be useful.
that's not possible.
Yeah. One good post will do a lot more than 10 incredibly bad posts about how this feature is the worst and it's literally the cancer that's killing Eve.
I can't tell you how many times we would be chatting in the private Skype channel, and somebody would say, "Hey, look at this post from this guy right here," and literally everybody in the CCP channel and the CSM channel would go out and look at the post, and then we'd start talking about the post, and yeah, this part of it is great, but maybe this part isn't too good, and then 4 posts later somebody would respond to it, and suddenly we're talking about that post.
But
It
I
happened
wish
a
to
lot.
assure you,
The
we
exact
never
same
had
thing-
long discussions about Eve is dying posts or...
The exact same thing happens with really bad posts as
Yeah,
well.
except we're just making
Everyone,
fun of you.
check out this really bad post.
Yeah, that's true. That does happen as well. But
A good example of that would be the interdictor bubble launcher changes, which was posted on Fail League Challenge, was flagged up and was incorporated, basically.
Yeah, those came, I think Marlona Sky originally suggested those.
Yeah.
And the interceptor changes were
Prometheus.
Prometheus Exthanol. Yeah.
Notorious fount of CCP advice, Prometheus Exenthal. Thank you, Prom.
That's putting it lightly.
We'll never forget you.
Awesome, thank you.
I know he's not. Okay, I'm going to stop because we have like a little bit more than 10. I'm going to do a question on the left here.
Yes, I was curious. Where does the CSM consider the boundaries of the game? That is, do they consider like blogs or TeamSpeak to be involved in their decisions in Eve? Or do they focus primarily just on what happens when you click the execution file and move on?
To clarify, can you clarify your question a little bit? Are you talking about like, do we
Or
participate?
just ask it straight.
Do we participate in blogs, TeamSpeak, etc.?
No, I mean for this, when you go off and consider what impact will this have on the meta, do you go and think about people using third-party software, or do you think primarily this is Eve, they're using the Eve voice chat, they're using...
Or no.
No.
I mean, we're all people who play the game and who at least at one point played the game a lot. And one of the main roles of the CSM is we are actual Eve players who actually play the game, and we evaluate changes as they would be used by ourselves, by our immediate constituents is the wrong word, but each CSM member has an area of expertise, people who play like that.
Yeah, we're basically players, so we use Deltlan and Siggy and...
And Jabber.
And Jabber and TeamSpeak, and so we just assume that we look at this and we say this is how people are going to be using that.
yeah, I think a good example is Twitch integration. When Twitch integration was coming in, there was a lot of discussion on the CSM about, given the kind of the limited state of Twitch integration into Eve, what players would use that for as opposed to the full Twitch client, and where the utility would be and kind of where the borders were.
Just FYI, even CCP does not use eVoice. Don't tell anyone I said that. We do not. Question.
Yes. So you mentioned most of the work CSM does, most of the public never sees if they do their job correctly, which is of course a problem because that way it looks like the CSM is never doing anything. So what do you think you guys should be doing, or what perhaps CCP should be doing, to make that sort of action visible to the players so that they see that the CSM is actually doing stuff to make their game better?
Well, I mean, they could go and then say, hey, we were going to do this really bad idea, but the CSM shut it down. But that might be a bad idea.
Yeah, so let me frame this discussion in advance. So one of the great things about the CSM as a business, because ultimately CCP is a company that exists to like make profit and do all these things, is that the CSM is a profit positive enterprise, right? Like I don't pay them anything. I fly 7 of them to Iceland 3 times a year, and they do a tremendous amount of work. And one of the things that's really great is they save us a lot of face a lot of the time. Like we have an idea, and the idea is really bad, but we don't recognize it as bad at that point.
We just say $1,000 jeans, and suddenly they
And
understand.
then we run an idea by them. Like I've run ideas by them in the forms like I'm gonna do this, and then it's just like no, and then but like what's really great is that because they're all signing an NDA, nobody ever has to know that bad idea ever occurred. So that's really great for us as a business because we look like smart people sometimes who are not making bad decisions. And if we start saying like, hey, guess what bad idea we had, but we didn't tell you, then it sort of defeats that purpose. So there's a balance there of finding like moments where it's like, hey, it's a win for both of us. Where it's not like CCP is dumb, the CSM saved their butts. That's not something we probably want to frame the discussion as. And that's a difficult thing to do. Yeah.
I think one thing.
I mean, there's fewer bad ideas, right? So we're mostly doing something right.
One thing we could do that would be, or one thing we've tried to do a little bit on 8, could maybe do more on 9, is do stuff where we make it more clear when a feature comes out on features and ideas discussion, where or how the CSM was involved, or have a little bit of kind of before and after posting or something, just smaller snippets.
But then you guys don't want to read those, so.
Yeah, no, I mean small snippets, like not the minutes, but like a little paragraph about, hey, this is the thing, this is how the CSM thinks about it, this is what we've been doing on it, that kind of thing, and then you can see the work that the CSM has done. You won't be, you'll as Dolan says, you'll never be able to see the screw-ups that were prevented, but you will be able to see the work that was done.
I think the devlog that came out recently, where the devs were talking about how the CSM had helped you, was a nice thing, and doing one of those on a more regular basis would be good. But the blunt reality is, if you think that getting elected to CSM is a way to get a lot of pats on the back and people thinking you're wonderful, you made a very bad decision.
Yes, you did.
I got one.
It's a good way to run away from pitchforks.
The one thing that we did try to do this year is if you look at how many of the CSM were out there trying to communicate with you with what little we could say under the NDA. You had Ali running her space hangout. She had Jester and his gang of clones writing continuously. We were on podcasts all over the place. For those of you who don't like to read, you could listen. There were videos. We made an effort to be communicative, and as communicative as we were allowed to be. There were times where people would ask questions, so, when are you going to fix pauses?
Yes. When are you going to make CCP fix pauses?
Yeah, when are you going to make them fix solve? We know the problems and we talk to them, but if we get an answer, we're not allowed to tell you until he or one of the other devs says something. So we are muted, and I admit that's a very big problem for us because we can't prove that we are the vitamins.
Okay, we have plenty of time actually. So go ahead.
Well, I was just sort of going to ask very closely to that. I was actually going to ask, what is your worst things you experienced? Like, is that running against the wall of CCP, or like what is the downside of being on CSM?
Can I go first?
Sure.
Hours. It's not just how much work, it's not the amount of work we put into it. We knew when we signed up we were doing things, but it's just, I'm a 7-hour time differential from here. And so they is not going to set up meetings to accommodate one guy. They set up the meetings for their office hours, and I understood that, but once you get into the reality of it, the winter summit I didn't fly to Iceland for, I attended the bloody thing, and it was an alarm clock op for 3 days, me getting up at 2 and attending meetings till 9 or 10 in the morning, and then crashing. because that was the only way that I could see the meetings. I showed up for them, so did, we had almost 13 of the people showed up for those meetings. Only 7 flew, all the other 6 did that. And it was just the time differential that got me the most was our regular bi-weekly meetings that he mentioned. Those were, depending on daylight savings time, either 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. So I'd attend the meeting and then rush off to get to work. And it was just that time differential where we're having conversations. They post something at my clock. There's a big Skype conversation going on at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And we guaranteed them a 24-hour turnaround because we couldn't, not everybody was awake at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. So we'd have them asking a question, kind of proposing the parameters of the question, and Malcanis and the people in Europe were answering quicker. And then you'd have another part of the conversation coming in come 7, 8 o'clock, and some would be after work. So we gave them a 24-hour turnaround. But even if you have, it was an asynchronous communication because we're on a planet and there's this damn sun that keeps...
I think the worst thing was the minutes, because they took like years to go out. So.
And everyone was really mad about us.
Yeah, and everyone was like reminding us, like, when's the minutes out? So
like we didn't know.
Yeah.
So the first round of the minutes, there were some miscommunications. It was the first time I had ever been involved in minutes production. So there were some miscommunications on how that worked.
Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made, but it is a lengthy process, and one of the things that I think the minutes used to do that I don't want them to do anymore, just from a pure business standpoint, is the minutes used to be really great, and I used to read them all the time as a player because somebody would miss a copy edit, somebody would miss a sentence or something like that, and I would make a tremendous amount of money in the market because it was unreleased info that was coming out for the first time, and was released in some sort of subtle way, or it was like you had to read between the lines to get it. But it was released in like a way that it wasn't meant to be. That conversation was meant to be between the CSM and CCP, and it wasn't really meant to include the entire player base because at that point it wasn't prepared to be released. And that's one of the things that we've been pretty successful of in these minutes is, in these minutes, the only things that are like new information that have come out in them regarding features are stuff that we have known are coming out in them and purposely left in. Whereas before it was just like, oh, we told them about X new ship in the minutes? Damn. Like, guess we have to look at the whole mineral market now or something like that. Like, and many people who read the minutes for that were very upset when I publicly said, like, those are no longer going to be in there. And removing those takes longer than just sort of shipping whatever, which would be great if I could just ship whatever. I'd love that. But ultimately, like, there is going to be some time period of these have to be checked by the right people, and I've got to make sure that the right people who checked them actually checked them and didn't just go like, yep, seems good, like, and pass on, which does happen at any business. So I think like the timing for the first minutes was definitely way long overdue. There's a lot of mistakes, a lot of learning period there. The second minutes, not terrible, I don't think. Like it took some time because we had some vacation and leave for the editing. But not a huge amount of time difference. Came out and was like, I don't know, people got to read it when they were thinking about the elections. There's a lot of bonuses there. Any more questions? Or can I call it a day? Actually, I'm over time already. Well, alrighty, everybody. I hope you all had a good time. Let's give CSM 8 a round of applause. They're 2 days from their last day in office. Can finally be free.
If you got more questions, you can find individuals. I recommend talking to
If you have any more questions, come to the round table on Saturday, 1400.
That too.
Hope you all go to the keynote. It's going to be awesome.